Cool. You made it.
Yeah, I did.
Welcome. Greetings. Salutations.
Thank you.
To the penultimate class. Penultimate class. We got one more to go after this. And for those of you, some of you I saw you last night, some of you I haven't seen you in a while. So this is it. This is the last night that we cover material. This is the last night where we go over new stuff. The exams are being printed right now. You were emailed a copy of them. I sent them a little bit late. I apologize. The double classes this week sort of had me a little thrown. But you were emailed a copy of the exam, and you'll get a dead tree version in a bit. You'll be taking that on your own over the weekend. That was the compromise we came to when we decided to double up the classes this week. So next class, we will be going over that exam, and I will be taking any questions from the floor. So come bring questions. It'll probably only take us about 2 hours to go over the exam. So if you don't,
those 100 questions.
Then we can go over the extra 100 questions that have a couple of you being scared. The extra 100 questions, each and every one of those questions is fair and in-game and is a reasonable question to be asked on the exam. The only exception, the only issue is about the extra exam is probably on average those questions are a little bit harder than you're likely to see on the exam on average. Every question's fine, but probably the combination of those questions is probably a little bit harder than you're likely to experience in the real exam. But the ASQ test bank, the things that you can take online, that tends to be a little bit easier than what you're going to see on the real exam. So if you think of that being a little bit easier, the extra 100 being a little bit harder, and probably the practice exams being more or less in line of what you're going to see on the real exam, you'll be pretty well prepared. So anything interesting? Anyone do anything fun or interesting in the last 24 hours? Fun, interesting?
Yeah, I was locked out.
Yeah, you got locked. Did they actually come and rescue you finally?
Yeah.
That was fun.
It was interesting.
I was locked out of my car last night after the class.
No way.
And I was by myself, and I was so scared, first of all. Luckily, I had my cell phone, and I didn't even, I thought you probably walked out from the back door.
Nope.
So I quickly emailed you, called my husband, and then called the Audi roadside assistance. And thankfully, when you guys came from front door, I said, can I just stand inside the building? Because, you know, nobody shows up.
It's not. You're in Princeton. It's not going to be that much fun.
I know, but still, it's like, you know.
Yeah, being in a parking lot by yourself is never fun.
Yeah,
At least if you come in here, you can sit down.
And nobody, even if I have to yell for help, there's nobody. Yeah, but yeah, so my husband actually left home right away with my spare key, and now I have the valet key with me for future, so that
So as long as you have your phone, you're set.
I walked in and he says, "Can you keep this in your?" I'm like, "What if this is not at home?" No, the guy came. He opened.
So who got there first, your husband or the Audi guy?
The Audi guy.
Oh, okay.
My husband was halfway. It's like a 30-minute commute for me, 25, 30. So he then I said, just turn around.
Did he give you a sufficiently hard time?
Actually, he's too nice of a guy.
Oh, perhaps we have another thing for the fishbone diagram. Yeah. I never would have let you hear the end of it.
Oh my God, no! But but all he did was because there is a plastic valet key, and we always leave it in the home. I don't know why. So he said, "Can you keep it so this is my little thing for future."
So that doesn't have a chip on it?
You can open it the traditional way, and then it can even start the car.
Okay, but you can't like open the trunk or something.
Even if I can get in the car and start it.
Just don't.
You know what happened? Because nowadays you don't really need the keys to start the car, right? You can just
push the button.
So the key was in my bag, and somehow this book probably.
Oh, it's all the book's fault.
Yes.
It's the book's fault.
It locked the car right away. Normally it won't lock. You have to, So that's how I got locked out.
Cool. So that was definitely interesting. I'm not sure it would classify as fun, but what about you, Anna? Do anything fun or interesting?
Alpha risk.
So it's last night?
Yes, it's last night.
No, I did some.
You did some more studying.
Yeah, today at work I did like 3 hours. No one was watching me.
That's between you and your boss and your God.
Don't take my bag inside because
Whatever, somewhere else.
it's all work related. you're enriching yourself and going to
Yeah, it's all fun.
open a nice IMR diagram and say, "Here, this is." I'm good.
Okay. Now that remember this is being recorded, so we don't want to incriminate ourselves too badly.
Oh my God. Okay, everything is okay. You can eliminate too nice of a guy for my husband. These things are not to be told.
Maybe I can sell it someone.
Yeah. He won't believe it.
Or maybe I'll make it as his ringtone. My husband is too nice of a guy. My husband is too nice of a guy. Okay, so what did we go over last class? We went over a lot of stuff, right?
The coffee.
We played with coffee. Why did we play with coffee besides the fact that I wanted to drive Anna nuts?
No, I was pretty prepared. It was just,
You came along eventually. You gave me a little bit of a hard time in the
Oh, I have an
beginning.
extra coffee.
that's what sorry you felt that way.
You gave me a little bit of a hard
That
time.
was 10.
No,
That's
because I don't,
Sorry, I thought
you
said
even
it.
said that, that even the thesis, hypothesis could be wrong, So the way you see it, the taste of this coffee has nothing to do as long as the salt substance are fine.
Yeah, well, that's the whole idea of the QFD is that you as the voice of the customer are able to articulate what it means something in words to you. And the QFD allows us to take something that means in words, something that has some sort of nominal relationship and translate it into something that you can measure.
But I tried both of these coffee. I
And you didn't like either
all
of them. Yeah, we know.
Exactly. So this exercise was like, okay, whatever.
No, but what you should have gotten away from that exercise, at least from that extent, is that you wanted to be able to find some parameter about the coffee that could allow us to measure something as subjective as taste.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. Okay, so we talked about that. So we ran an experiment, right? We ran an experiment that had how many factors? How many factors? Three factors.
Those two levels.
Three. Yeah. What were our factors? Our factors were store.
Milk and no milk
Okay.
contamination and
Black contamination.
No, coffee.
caffeine.
Contamination. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep. So what we did is we compared Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts, which is the store. We then compared the caffeination, decaf and regular,
I trashed this paper. I wanna show it to you.
and then we also looked at the effect of putting milk in the coffee versus not having milk in the coffee. Cool. Okay, so we talked about what did we talk about related to that? Well, we talked about what a response was, right? So the response was the physical thing that you're measuring. So that was the total dissolved solids. That was the pH, the things that you were actually measuring, the outputs. And the inputs were the factors at the various levels. So a factor is a thing you're going to change, and a level is what you change it to. So for the factor of store, we have two levels, right? Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks. For the factor of caffeination, we had two levels, decaf and regular. And finally, for the factor of contamination, we had black and milk. Cool. Well, we talked about repetitions and replications. So you guys took two sets of measurements. Were those repetitions or were those replications? They were repetitions, right? Because we didn't do a complete rerun of the experiment. We didn't go and get another box of Joe. We didn't go and get another coffee traveler from Starbucks and get a completely different batch. All of our observations were drawn from the same batch. Therefore, it was an example of a repetition, not a replication. Okay, we talked about some other terms related to design of experiments. You should be familiar with those. You should be familiar with confounding. So confounding is when there's some hidden variable that is really causing the effect and the change in your response that you're just not measuring, you're not accounting for. And that's sort of closely related to a noise factor, which is some other factor that is in there that's providing some variation that you're not controlling for. Or in the case of the Takaguchi methods, that you're deliberately introducing to see how it happens. You should also be familiar with the term coding. So coding is some way that you simplify the way your data is being represented to make it easier for computation or just for understanding. So instead of having someone write out their entire social security number, just use their last 4 digits of their social security number. Okay, what else do we talk about regarding that? Full factorial design versus partial factorial design. So in the case of a full factorial design, you're doing each and every combination. So to calculate out the number of trials, the number of observations you need to take, for a full factorial design, it has a very simple formula. It's the number of levels raised to the number of factors. So in the case of our Starbucks example, where we had 2 levels for 3 factors, we had to do a minimum of 8 observations, 8 trials to be able to do a full factorial design. Okay, do we talk about anything else with design of experiments? We went through the cube plot, right? You guys should be familiar with how to read the cube plot, how to interpret the cube plot. It's fun, right?
Well, it's not easy.
It's not easy. You got to think in 3 dimensions. You got to spatially think, and some people think that way naturally, some people don't, and it's kind of a different way of thinking about how to display your data to tell a story. And we saw that.
I'm having a little confusion distinguishing between factor and level.
Okay, factor is what is the thing that you're going to change, and the level is what you're going to change it to.
Factor is variable, varies,
The factor is the thing you're going to change. It's the property that you're going to vary.
and the other thing will be constant.
Well, it's what you're going to change it to. So you're going to change the factor of store to either be Dunkin' Donuts, that's 1 level, or you're going to set that factor to be Dunkin' Donuts. Or in the milling example, you're going to set the mill for a high speed, that's going to be 1 level, or you're going to set it to a low speed, that's another level for the factor of speed.
So we have 3 factors and 2 levels.
Yep. So we talked about the cube plot. The cube plot allows you to look at things in 3-dimensional space to see some relationships about how your factors interact with each other. And we were able to see that like decaf caused it to have a higher total dissolved solids. Starbucks on average had a higher total dissolved solids than Dunkin'. And on average, adding milk caused there to be a higher total dissolved solids, right? That was more or less what we saw. Okay, so you should be familiar with how to read the cube plot. Then what else do we talk about? Your favorite process capability, right? Yeah, the PP and the CP stuff. Okay, so what do you have to do before you can do process capability? What do you have to show?
Process is control.
The process is in control. Yes,
Stable.
the process is stable, exactly. Control and stable are synonyms. They mean the same thing. Okay, what do you have to show before you can do a control chart?
It's normally distributed.
Exactly. Before you can do the control chart, you have to show that your data is normally distributed. So if your data is normally distributed, you can do the control chart. If your control chart shows that your process is stable, then you can do process capability. So the idea with process capability is to relate the voice of the process to the voice of the customer. So the voice of the customer speaks to us through our upper and lower specification limits, right?
So while we are talking about method design, there's a question I'd like to, that can we,
Yeah, sure.
the advantage of using the modern design method of experimentation rather than the classical. Did we talk about modern and classical?
No, we didn't. But what they're getting at is full factorial, 1 factor at a time as compared to multiple factors at a
So the
time.
options are everything is held constant except the factor under investigation.
Not that.
Experimental error is recognized but need not be stated in quantitative terms.
That's not right.
Fewer terms and measurements are needed for valid and useful information.
That sounds pretty reasonable.
The sequence of measurement is often assumed to have no effect.
That's absolutely wrong because the answer is C. Yeah, the reason the answer is C is because the other ones are just flat out wrong. So the idea there is in design of experiments, what you're doing is you're doing randomized trials to test different factors in different levels to make sure that there's not a time component, that there's not some other confounding factor that's just due to the time, where the operator becomes more skilled and your yield goes up just because the guys have done it more. They're getting more familiar with the process. So in one of the time factors, you're only changing one thing at a time. You're going through a pretty well-defined sequence, and there's other hidden confounded factors that are going on in there. Okay, so process capability. Here's a very good exam question. Which one of our process capability metrics can you do when you only have an upper specification limit and no lower specification limit? So which one
CPK?
of our, I'm just going to not answer your,
Okay.
give an answer, I'm just going to repeat it. So which one of our process one, or which ones, it could be more than one, of our process capability metrics can we calculate if we only have an upper specification limit and no lower specification limit? So let's write down our options. So we have A, CP, B, EP, C, CP, and PP, or D, CK. So which one of these can we do if we only have an upper spec limit and no lower specification limit? Great exam question.
CPK?
We have one vote for CPK and 2 abstentions. Well,
I don't know, I don't think about that.
okay, let's think about it. Let's think.
When you
Do I have to go to the thinking chair?
When you only
Do I have to sit in the
have
thinking chair?
the higher limit of it?
Yeah.
Non-specific.
Yeah, you only have an upper specification limit. You don't have a lower spec limit.
You don't know it, but probably.
No, it doesn't even exist, right? In the case of the subway example, we know there's a lower specification limit. We don't really care if there's an upper specification limit. Give me a 14-inch sub, I'll be very happy.
So average minus 1. I think it's a CPK.
I don't know, they haven't voted.
Yeah. um,
I have no idea. I'm not gonna guess.
Don't make me download the Jeopardy theme song. You make me do it, aren't you? Remember, you get 2.4 minutes per question. We've been awkwardly standing here for about a minute now. Still got another minute and 40 seconds of me standing awkwardly. You gotta know.
No, I don't. I don't have to do anything. I can still fail the test if I want it. I don't know. You know, that's my problem. If the question is going to be designed like this, I know it.
Okay, well, what's your strategy? Well, it's a good idea to write down the formulas, right? So what's the formula for CP? CP equals the upper specification limit minus the lower specification limit over 6 sigma. And what's PP? It's exactly the same upper specification limit minus the lower specification limit over 6 sigma. We don't need to write this again. And what's CPK? It's the min, the upper spec minus the average over 3 sigma, or the average minus the lower specification limit over 3 sigma. All right, so we're gonna pick the smaller of those two. So if we don't know the lower specification limit, can we calculate out CP?
No.
If we don't know the lower specification limit, can we calculate out PP? Okay, that means we And what about the minimum here? Well, do we necessarily need, if we don't know our lower specification limit, can we still calculate out CPK? Yeah, because we still know our upper spec limit, we still know our average, we still know 3 sigma.
Thank you.
So, good exam type question. You're going to say that's a math question. I'm going to say it's absolutely not a math question. Anna, you going to say that's a math question?
No.
Okay, good. At least you're not going to argue that because it's
I
got.
don't know how to start with this.
Okay, so that's a good thing that we went over it. When you don't know what to do, look up the formula. And look at the formula, and that'll help you to understand it. Because as soon as I wrote out the formula, the aha moment happened. And you don't have to memorize the formula. It's an open book, open notes exam. It's only when you've done this a bunch, you can actually do it off the top of your head without having to look, which is kind of scary. You can really impress people at bars. Yeah. No, you can't. Why are we not clicking? Now we're clicking. The clicker's not working. No clicking. Really not clicking. There we go.
Okay, another question. To state that a model in an experimental design is fixed indicates that the level used for each factor are the only ones of interest. The levels were chosen from fixed population. The equipment from which the data are collected must not be moved. The factors under consideration are qualitative. I would say the A, the levels used for each factor are the only ones that we,
What was option B?
the levels were chosen from a fixed population.
No, that's not it. B is wrong. What's C?
The equipment from the data, from which the data are collected must not be moved. I don't know.
I don't know what that means. That's not it.
Factors under consideration are qualitative.
That's not it.
So it's A, the levels
Yeah.
used for each factor are the only ones.
Yeah, so that's a, my clicker doesn't want to work. Oh, my battery's died. Oh, sweet.
Now, this is a good question. So the opposite of alpha risk in hypothesis testing is called, you immediately would jump and say big,
But it's not, right?
but it's not.
And it should be really the opposite. It should be the
It's level
complement.
of alpha risk.
Do we gonna do this test or
No.
we gonna focus on?
We're gonna go through the material. She's just gonna keep throwing questions at me, and I was fiddling with my clicker because my clicker wasn't
Because
working.
it's related to the material he's talking about. I don't know.
Clicker wasn't working.
You open them after this.
Yeah, it more correctly, it should be the complement of alpha risk.
It's alpha is level of confidence.
No, minus,
Minus.
1 minus alpha. Minus alpha.
So the options are beta risk,
Alpha
1
risk.
minus beta risk,
There is a
level of
beta risk. And there is
level
1
of
minus beta
significance is
risk.
alpha.
This is count. So they are question and they will work around.
They confuse you, the
Yeah,
answer, the
I
option,
usually confuse you.
option is beta risk, 1 minus beta risk, level of confidence, or 1 minus level of confidence.
But 1 minus beta risk doesn't exist. So
Correct.
1 minus beta is power. So if we say 1 minus beta risk or alpha risk, then something is.
Yep, they're trying to trick you up. Okay,
It's just usually